Thank you for being here today. I would like to first to say want to thank the dedicated sheriff officers, investigators, and the Gulf Coast Task Force for their dedication to this case. We refuse to give up on this case. It has been almost 2 years since this double homicide of the Massey brothers. The Massey's family, because of this dedication and this cooperative teamwork of the Gulf Coast Task Force and my dedicated investigators of our homicide division, the Massey family will get some semblance of justice. Here with us today are the members of that task force and my investigators behind me. We also have with us, who also did not give up on this case and helped us in this investigation, the DA's office, Brian Middleton. At this time, I will have my Detective James Willoughby to come up, and after him, Brian Middleton of the DA's office. Thank you.
My name is Sergeant Charlie Willoughby. I'm in the Criminal Investigations Division. Over the past almost 2 years, we've been working on this case. 15-year-old Devin Massey and 17-year-old Jonathan Massey. This happened on December 12th, 2020 in Fresno, when deputies responded to the 300 block of Broadmoor in reference to a shooting. Upon their arrival, there were 3 victims with gunshot wounds. 2 of those victims had fatal injuries and were deceased upon their arrival. After further investigation, we went through tons of evidence. At the beginning, the detectives were able to locate a lot of good things. They worked together with the crime scene unit and got all the evidence needed for this investigation. And over the course of it, we've been able to put the pieces together. With the assistance of the Gulf Coast Violent Offender Task Force, they were able to take the warrants once we identified the suspects. And as of Wednesday, they were able to have all 4 of them apprehended and in our custody here at the jail. One of the first suspects is Dallin Phillips. He's 19, and he's charged with murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, as well as previous warrants for evading arrest and that he had prior to this. Total of over $1 million in bonds. Donovan Phillips, age 20, was arrested as well with Dallin. He too was charged with the same thing, $1 million bonds. Jalen Allen, 19, was also charged, same charges, $1 million bonds. And also Jaden Gaines, $1 million bonds for murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Without the initial investigation and everything, wouldn't have what we had. The Gulf Coast, they took the warrants, they did everything they did to make sure everyone was safely apprehended, and without the collaboration of everybody, we wouldn't be here today. So with that.
Can you give us your name, sir, please,
Charlie Willoughby, Willeby. I'm a sergeant in the Criminal Investigations Division.
Excuse me. Good morning. When this crime first occurred, I was immediately notified, and I was devastated to learn that a mother had lost 2 of her children in one criminal episode. Shortly after that, my phone began ringing from people in the community who were upset, who were hurting that these 2 very popular young men had been killed. There was a demand for justice, and we began meeting and trying to resolve the issue in our community. I am thankful to God for these men behind me who could have very easily let this case go cold. It took some time to solve it because it was a difficult case, but they stayed the course. They remained vigilant and diligent in their efforts and were able to bring these individuals to justice. It's a sad case, but it's a reminder that every life has value. These young men, the Massey boys, will now have a voice. These men will be brought to justice and they will answer for their crimes. So I thank the Sheriff's Department. I thank Sheriff Fagan. I thank all these men behind me for working so diligently to bring these suspects to justice. As a result of their efforts, our community is better off, humanity is better off, and I'm so grateful that this has been done in our community. Thank you.
This still is an ongoing investigation. Like Brian said, we're all of us were devastated for a mother and a father to lose two children in a senseless act of crime. At the same time, two young men's lives were taken senselessly. And like he said, this was over 2 years ago, 2 years ago. But the dedication of my investigative team and the dedication of the Gulf Coast team and the dedication of the DA's office, we all stayed the course and made it one of our priority cases. Other investigators worked on this case too, and they handed the ball off to a new investigative team that built on to that investigation. So this took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it was worth it to bring justice for this family. At this time, we'll take questions, but like I said, it still is an ongoing investigation, so some questions won't be able to answer at this time.
Sheriff, what was the relationship, if any, between the suspects and the victims in this case?
We're looking into that right now. We think we have a possible a motive for it, but like I said, it's a working case. But we think we have a motive and how they got connected.
Anything you can tell us on that motive today?
No, not at this time.
And, after, nearly 2 years, what was it that broke open this case after being a cold case for so long? What was the difference maker in this case?
I'll have to say the citizenry getting tips. Look, I don't want people to take this light when things happen, to not be afraid to come forward to let us know. These individuals we arrested were dangerous individuals and took the lives of two young men. If we didn't get them off the street, there's no telling what could have happened. So we need the public's help to work with us, and that joint effort brought these individuals into custody.
Chairman, go ahead. No, you go. I was going to ask, can you provide some more information on when and where these suspects were arrested?
Willoughby? Or Gulf Coast?
Yeah, that's fine. So, first one, Jalen Allen, he was apprehended at his home. Jaden Gaines, I believe, was also found near his residence as well. And both Dalen and Donovan Phillips were in Houston at an apartment complex. They had been followed there.
And was that all, within the past week, or?
Yeah, we had Jalen. Jalen was the first one. We got him on August 9th. Jaden, we had him on this past Monday, and then both Dalen and Donovan were apprehended on Wednesday, this past Wednesday.
Any kind of resistance or like that?
I don't believe so, no.
Did they say anything to officers?
We're not going to talk about the interviews right now, no.
The Phillips, are they brothers?
Yes.
Yes.
And whoever can answer. You said it's an
Take this back,
ongoing
Sheriff.
investigation. Is it because you're still looking for more people to arrest, or why is it still an ongoing?
It has to go to court. We're the law enforcement side of it, and now we're depending on the DA's side, who's working with us to do the case. So it's ongoing investigation with the DA's office.
These guys, were they friends, or can you just talk about how young these guys were 2 years ago? So they were 16 and 18?
Well, they all were a member of a group together, so they hung out together. We do know that. Yes, ma'am.
You said a group was like a gang member?
No, I'm not saying it was a gang. We just know they hung out in a group.
They're acquaintances.
They're acquaintances, yes.
When,
Yes.
When you guys made the arrest, guys, did they say anything? Did they have any demeanor? Did they say?
Well, like you said, Investigator Willoughby just said, we can't discuss what they said. That's a part of the ongoing case. Yes, ma'am.
So are they all in jail now, and more or less, when are they going to be brought to trial? More or less.
They are all in jail, but
Morning. My name is Mark Hanna. I'm the chief of the Special Crimes Division. I work for Mr. Brian Middleton. They are still all in custody at this time. They have not yet been indicted by a grand jury, and that will begin the timetable before they're actually brought to trial, and that could be any number of months or possibly years.
And Sheriff, so are you looking for any additional suspects at this point?
at this time, we're not, but we never know. Like I said, it's an ongoing investigation. If something turns up where we feel like it was another suspect, we'll look into it.
And these four gentlemen who were arrested, were they known to law enforcement, or did they have any kind of criminal history that you're aware of?
Yeah, each one had prior history, prior criminal history, yes.
And Sheriff, I know you said you can't say much about the motive at this point, but can you say, I mean, does this at this point appear random or no?
No, we don't believe it was random, no. Yes, ma'am.
The crime took place 2 years ago, and these four suspects were arrested within the past 3 weeks. So, how did that happen? What happened during the past month?
Getting evidence, gathering evidence. In a case like this, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to make a mistake. You want to be careful. So it took time. When it happened, we had no tips, none. They worked cold on this case. And so it took time to gather the evidence. And when we gathered, we had to follow the suspects and things like that until we can get enough evidence to get a warrant to make the arrest. So we had to be very careful, and that takes time.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
I got it. He's not going to toot his own horn, but I can tell you, this was a difficult case. They didn't give up on it, and they were relentless in their pursuit of justice, and that's why it took 2 years, because it was a difficult case. There was a lot of work that had to be done, and they did it. They didn't give up. This was a strong effort. There was no lax in their efforts in trying to apprehend these suspects. It's just sometimes cases are complicated, and it takes this much effort to bring people to justice.
But Dean Middleton, Sheriff, or anybody else up here, have you spoken to the family of the victims since the arrest, and if so, can you share a little bit about what they told you?
Yes, we reached out to the family here at the Sheriff's Department and the DA's office. We kept them in the loop as much as we could. So we have reached out to the family, and they do know that the suspects have been arrested.
I'd imagine they're probably pretty relieved. Did they say anything like that?
Well, they're, I won't say relieved because they lost 2 children. They were happy that the suspects were arrested. That's all I can say about that.
Can you talk about, I mean, just the countless hours all of you guys have put into this, and then to finally actually get these people in custody? I know not relief and you can't bring these boys back, but it's got to feel good or somewhat of an accomplishment to be at this point after all these years.
Yes, we do feel good, and it was hundreds of hours, man hours, if not thousands of man hours. My deputy in the Gulf Coast, we talking, they worked sometimes over 24 hours a day, staying on it, relieving one another to work on this case. They never gave up on this case. Some of my investigators, they said they slept and dreamed about it. Wake up and think, hey, look, let me try this, try something else. Because like I said, it was this case, we had nothing at the beginning, no tips, or we're getting wild tips that we had to disclaim and things like that. So this team should be proud of the men and women who work for the Sheriff's Department here and the Gulf Coast. I can't thank them enough, the Gulf Coast Task Force, for helping us with this. Yes.
2 of these suspects, they're 19 now, which means they were 17 when the crime took place, which is the same age as one of the victims. Were they in the same high school, or were they known to each other?
I really can't answer that at this time. You know,
What I can say to you at the time, The victims in this case were very well known in the community, very popular young men. The suspects lived in that same community, so I think it's safe to assume the answer to your question is that they knew each other.
Okay, if there's not any other questions, thank you again